Every morning you wake up with the best intentions to accomplish something meaningful. Yet by evening you realize you have been pulled in 17 different directions, your mind scattered like leaves in a hurricane, achieving nothing of true substance while feeling exhausted from constant mental chaos. This is not a personal failing or lack of willpower. This is the predictable result of living in a world designed to fragment your attention and steal your focus. But what if I told you that over 800 years ago, a Japanese warrior philosopher discovered a method so powerful for cultivating unbreakable concentration that it could transform any distracted mind into a laser-focused instrument of achievement? Minamoto no Yoshitsune, one of Japan's most legendary figures, developed principles of mental discipline that allowed him to maintain perfect focus even in the chaos of battle. And when you understand and apply his teachings, you will never again fall victim to the modern epidemic of scattered attention that is destroying the potential of millions of people around the world. Before we dive deeper into Yoshitsune's revolutionary approach to focus, I want you to do something that will help not just you, but everyone in our community who struggles with distraction. Hit the like button if you have ever felt frustrated by your inability to maintain focus on what truly matters. Subscribe to this channel if you are serious about transforming your mental discipline. And most importantly, share in the comments below this exact phrase so I know you are committed to change. Write simply, "I choose focus over chaos." And then tell me which area of your life suffers most from distraction. Is it your work, your relationships, your personal goals, or your spiritual development? Your honesty will help me create content that addresses the specific challenges our community faces. And when you share your struggle, you give permission for others to do the same, creating a space where we can all grow together through Yoshitsune's timeless wisdom. To understand the true power of Yoshitsune's teachings, you must first understand the man himself and the impossible circumstances that forged his philosophy of focus. Born into a world where survival depended on split-second decisions and where a moment of distraction meant death, Yoshitsune could not afford the luxury of a wandering mind that plagues modern life. Picture this scenario. You are surrounded by enemy warriors, each one seeking to end your life. Weapons flash in all directions. Battle cries echo across the field. Dust and blood fill the air. Your heart pounds with such intensity that you can barely hear your own thoughts. Yet in this moment of ultimate chaos, you must remain completely focused on the precise movements required not just to survive, but to lead your forces to victory. This was not a one-time experience for Yoshitsune. This was his daily reality. And it was in these crucible moments that he discovered what he called the principle of singular awareness. The ability to maintain complete focus on what matters most while remaining peripherally aware of everything else without being distracted by it. The principle of singular awareness begins with understanding that focus is not about eliminating all distractions, which is impossible in our interconnected world, but about developing the mental discipline to choose consciously where you direct your attention at any given moment. Yoshitsune realized that the mind naturally wants to jump from thought to thought, from concern to concern, from stimulus to stimulus, like a monkey swinging from branch to branch in an endless forest. But this natural tendency can be trained and directed through specific practices that strengthen your ability to maintain concentration even when surrounded by chaos. The first element of his system involves what he called anchoring your awareness, which means identifying the single most important task or goal in any given moment and returning to it consistently whenever your mind begins to wander. This is not about forcing your mind to stay in one place, which creates tension and actually weakens focus, but about gently guiding your attention back to your chosen anchor point each time you notice it has drifted. Just as a skilled warrior returns to his fighting stance after each movement without struggle or self-criticism. The second element involves developing what Yoshitsune termed peripheral stability, the ability to remain aware of your environment and potential distractions without allowing them to pull your primary attention away from your central focus. Imagine you are reading an important document that requires your full concentration, but you are in a busy coffee shop where conversations, music, and movement surround you constantly. Most people either become completely absorbed in the document and miss important environmental cues, or they become so distracted by the environment that they cannot absorb the document's content. Yoshitsune's approach teaches you to maintain primary focus on the document while keeping a relaxed awareness of your surroundings, allowing you to notice if something truly requires your attention without being pulled away by every minor disturbance. This skill becomes invaluable in modern life, where you must often concentrate on important tasks while remaining responsive to family needs, work emergencies, or other legitimate interruptions that may arise. Let me share with you the story of how I personally discovered the transformative power of these principles, because until I learned to apply Yoshitsune's teachings, I was trapped in the same cycle of distraction that affects most people today. 3 years ago, I was struggling to complete a critical project that would determine the direction of my career. But despite having all the resources and time I needed, I found myself constantly distracted by social media notifications, email alerts, phone calls, and the endless stream of thoughts about other projects, personal concerns, and random worries that seemed to multiply whenever I tried to focus. Each day I would sit down with the best intentions to make significant progress, but hours would pass and I would realize I had accomplished nothing substantial. My mind had been everywhere except where it needed to be. The frustration was overwhelming, not just because of the lack of progress, but because I felt like I had no control over my own attention, like my mind was a wild horse that refused to be directed no matter how hard I tried to force it into submission. It was during this period of struggle that I first encountered Yoshitsune's teachings, and initially, I was skeptical that ancient warrior philosophy could address modern problems of digital distraction and information overload. However, as I began to study and apply his principles, I realized that the fundamental challenge of maintaining focus in chaos is timeless. Whether the chaos comes from enemy warriors or email notifications, the mental discipline required is essentially the same. I started with the most basic practice he recommended, which involves choosing one primary task each morning and treating it as your sacred mission for that day, just as a warrior chooses his primary objective before entering battle. This task becomes your anchor point, the place your mind returns to whenever it begins to wander, and you protect your focus on this task as fiercely as a warrior protects his life. The key insight that changed everything for me was understanding that focus is not about intensity or forcing your mind to stay in one place, but about developing the gentle discipline to guide your attention back to your chosen focus point each time you notice it has wandered. The transformation was not immediate, but it was profound and lasting. Within the first week of applying Yoshitsune's anchoring technique, I noticed that I could maintain concentration for longer periods without feeling mentally exhausted. Within a month, I had completed the project that had been stagnating for months, and the quality of work was significantly higher than anything I had produced when my attention was scattered. Most importantly, I discovered that this increased focus capacity extended into every area of my life. My conversations became more meaningful because I was fully present with people, instead of mentally multitasking. My decision-making improved because I could consider options more thoroughly without being distracted by irrelevant factors. And my overall sense of satisfaction increased dramatically because I was actually accomplishing the things that mattered to me, instead of just staying busy with trivial activities. Now I know some of you might be thinking that this sounds too simple to work, or that your situation is uniquely challenging in ways that ancient philosophy cannot address. I understand this skepticism because I had the same doubts. But here's what Yoshitsune understood that modern productivity experts often miss. The human mind has not changed significantly in thousands of years, and the principles that allowed warriors to maintain focus in life or death situations are even more powerful when applied to the less dramatic but equally important challenges of modern life. The difference is not in the complexity of the techniques, but in your willingness to practice them consistently until they become as natural as breathing. Yoshitsune did not develop his focus abilities overnight. He trained daily for years to master the mental discipline that made him legendary. And while you may not need warrior-level focus, the same principles that served him in battle will serve you in your career, relationships, and personal development when you commit to applying them with sincerity and persistence. The third element of Yoshitsune's system involves what he called rhythmic engagement, which means working with your natural energy cycles instead of fighting against them to maximize your focus capacity throughout the day. He observed that warriors who tried to maintain the same level of intensity for hours at a time would eventually collapse from exhaustion, while those who learned to pulse their energy, alternating between periods of intense focus and strategic rest, could maintain their effectiveness much longer. This principle applies perfectly to modern work and study, where the common mistake is trying to maintain constant productivity without acknowledging that the mind, like the body, needs periods of recovery to function optimally. Yoshitsune recommended working in focused bursts of activity, followed by brief periods of complete mental rest, during which you deliberately allow your mind to wander or engage in simple, non-demanding activities that restore your concentration capacity. In practical terms, this might mean working with complete focus for 45 to 90 minutes, then taking a 10 to 15-minute break where you step away from your primary task entirely Perhaps taking a walk, doing light stretching, or simply sitting quietly without consuming any information. The key is that during these rest periods, you are not switching to another demanding task, checking email, or scrolling through social media, all of which continue to drain your focus capacity instead of restoring it. Instead, you give your mind permission to rest completely, just as you would rest your body between intense physical exercises. When you return to your primary task after this type of strategic rest, you will find that your concentration is refreshed and your ability to maintain focus is significantly enhanced. The fourth element involves developing what Yoshitsune called directional clarity, which means having a clear understanding of why your chosen focus matters and how it connects to your larger goals and values. Without this deeper sense of purpose, focus becomes a mechanical exercise that the mind will naturally resist because it lacks meaning and emotional engagement. Yoshitsune knew that warriors who understood why they were fighting and what they were protecting could maintain focus and determination even in the most challenging circumstances, while those who lacked this clarity would falter when difficulties arose. The same principle applies to any area where you want to improve your focus. Whether you are studying, working on a creative project, building relationships, or developing new skills, you must have clear emotional and intellectual understanding of why this focus matters to you personally. This is why so many people struggle to maintain focus on activities that they know are important, but feel disconnected from emotionally. For example, you might know intellectually that exercise is important for your health, but if you have not connected this knowledge to a deeper sense of why you want to be healthy, what you want to be able to do with your life, and how this connects to your values and relationships, then maintaining focus on an exercise routine will feel like forcing yourself to do something unpleasant rather than choosing to do something meaningful. Yoshitsune would spend time before each battle reflecting on what he was fighting for, who he was protecting, and how his actions connected to his deepest values. And this practice of connecting immediate actions to ultimate purposes gave him extraordinary motivation to maintain focus, even when the situation became extremely difficult. You can apply this principle by taking time each morning to reflect on why your chosen focus for the day matters to you personally. This is not about creating artificial motivation or trying to convince yourself that unimportant tasks are important, but about identifying the genuine connections between your immediate activities and your deeper goals and values. When you are working on a challenging project, remind yourself how completing this project will contribute to your long-term career goals, your ability to provide for your family, your sense of personal accomplishment, or whatever deeper purpose gives your life meaning. When you are studying, connect your learning to your vision of who you want to become, the contribution you want to make to the world, or the problems you want to solve. This practice of directional clarity transforms focus from a matter of discipline into a matter of alignment, where maintaining concentration becomes easier because you are emotionally invested in the outcome. Let me pause here to reconnect with you directly, because I want to acknowledge something that you might be feeling right now. If you have struggled with focus and distraction for a long time, you might be thinking that these principles sound reasonable in theory, but wondering whether you can actually apply them successfully, given your past experiences of starting new systems and then abandoning them when life gets busy or stressful. This doubt is completely understandable and actually shows wisdom, because the internet is full of productivity advice that sounds good but fails to produce lasting change. What makes Yoshitsune's approach different is that it was developed by someone who could not afford to fail, whose very survival depended on the effectiveness of his mental training, and who refined these principles through years of real-world application in the most demanding circumstances imaginable. The reason most focus improvement techniques fail is that they try to force the mind to behave in ways that contradict its natural tendencies, creating internal resistance that eventually overwhelms willpower. Yoshitsune's approach works with the mind's natural patterns instead of fighting against them, which makes the techniques sustainable even when you are tired, stressed, or dealing with challenging circumstances. You do not need to become a different person or develop supernatural willpower to apply these principles successfully. You simply need to understand how your mind actually works, and then guide it skillfully instead of trying to dominate it through force. The warriors who studied under Yoshitsune were not superhuman. They were ordinary people who learned to work with their mental patterns instead of against them. And this same approach will work for you when you apply it with patience and consistency. The fifth element of Yoshitsune's system addresses one of the biggest obstacles to maintaining focus in modern life, which is the constant pressure to multitask and the belief that doing multiple things simultaneously makes you more productive. Yoshitsune observed that warriors who tried to fight multiple opponents at once were almost always defeated, while those who could maintain focus on one opponent at a time while remaining aware of others could handle even overwhelming odds. He called this principle sequential mastery, which means giving your full attention to one task until it is complete, or until you reach a natural stopping point, then shifting your complete attention to the next task, rather than trying to divide your focus among multiple activities. This principle directly contradicts the modern myth that multitasking is efficient, when in reality, research has consistently shown that what we call multitasking is actually rapid task switching, and each switch carries a cognitive cost that reduces both the quality and speed of your work. When you try to write an email while listening to a conference call while monitoring social media notifications, you are not doing three things efficiently. You are doing three things poorly while exhausting your mental resources much faster than if you had focused on each task individually. Yoshitsune's sequential mastery approach would have you listen fully to the conference call without any other distractions, then write the email with complete attention, then check social media if necessary, but only after the previous tasks were finished. The practical application of this principle requires developing what Yoshitsune called transition rituals, brief practices that help you shift your complete attention from one task to another, without carrying mental residue from the previous activity. These rituals can be as simple as taking 3 deep breaths, standing up and stretching, or writing a brief note about where you left off with the previous task, so your mind can let go of it completely. The key is having a consistent way to signal to your mind that you are finished with one focus area and ready to engage fully with the next, rather than trying to maintain partial attention on multiple things simultaneously. This approach requires you to make conscious choices about what deserves your attention and when, rather than allowing external demands to dictate how you allocate your mental resources. It means saying no to good opportunities so you can say yes wholeheartedly to great ones. And it means protecting your focus time as fiercely as you would protect any other valuable resource. When someone asks for your immediate attention while you are engaged in focused work, you learn to respond with something like, "I want to give you my complete attention. Can we discuss this at 2 o'clock when I finish this project?" Rather than fragmenting your focus to accommodate every request as it arises. The 6th element involves developing what Yoshitsune called environmental design, which means deliberately structuring your physical and digital environment to support focus rather than hinder it. He understood that even the most disciplined warrior could not maintain peak focus if his environment was constantly working against him. And the same principle applies to modern focus challenges. Your environment includes not just your physical space, but also your digital devices, your social connections, your daily routines, and all the external factors that influence your mental state throughout the day. Environmental design begins with eliminating or minimizing obvious distractions from your focus space. This means turning off unnecessary notifications, keeping your phone in another room during focused work periods, organizing your workspace so everything you need is easily accessible while everything you do not need is out of sight, and creating visual and auditory conditions that support concentration rather than fragment it. However, environmental design goes deeper than just removing distractions. It also involves actively creating conditions that make focus easier and more natural. For example, you might establish a specific location that you use only for your most important work, so your mind associates that space with deep concentration. You might create a pre-focus ritual that signals to your subconscious that it is time to engage in serious mental work, such as making a specific type of tea, playing particular background music, or reviewing your goals for the session. You might schedule your most demanding focus work during the time of day when your energy and concentration naturally peak, and use lower energy periods for routine tasks that do not require intense mental engagement. The key insight is that willpower alone is not sufficient to maintain focus if your environment is constantly undermining your efforts. By designing your environment to support your focus goals, you make concentration easier and more sustainable because you are working with external systems rather than fighting against them. This is exactly what Yoshitsune did when he chose his positions on the battlefield, selected his weapons, and arranged his forces in ways that would give him tactical advantages. He understood that victory came not just from personal skill and determination, but from creating conditions that supported success rather than hindered it. Now, let me share with you how these principles apply specifically to the 3 most important areas of modern life, where focus determines success or failure. In your personal life, applying Yoshitsune's teachings means treating your most important relationships, health practices, and personal development activities with the same respect and attention that he gave to his most crucial battles. This means, when you are spending time with family members, you give them your complete attention, rather than partially engaging while checking your phone or thinking about work concerns. When you are exercising, you focus completely on the physical experience, rather than using workout time to catch up on podcasts or plan your day. When you are learning new skills or working on personal goals, you create dedicated time where this development receives your full mental resources, rather than trying to squeeze it into the margins of your busy schedule. In your relational life, Yoshitsune's principles transform how you interact with others by helping you become fully present in conversations and conflicts, rather than being distracted by your own agenda, judgments, or preparations for what you will say next. This quality of attention is so rare in modern interactions that when you offer it consistently, people will notice immediately, and your relationships will deepen in ways that surprise you. Focused listening means that you hear not just the words people speak, but the emotions and concerns underneath their words. And this deeper level of understanding allows you to respond more effectively and compassionately. Focused presence in relationships also means that when conflicts arise, you can address them directly and skillfully, rather than avoiding them or becoming overwhelmed by emotional reactions that cloud your judgment. In your professional life, these principles give you an enormous competitive advantage because most people in modern workplaces have completely lost the ability to focus deeply on important tasks for extended periods. While your colleagues are constantly distracted by email, meetings, social media, and multitasking, you will be able to produce higher quality work in less time because you can engage fully with challenging problems without mental fragmentation. This superior focus capacity will be noticed by supervisors and clients, leading to more interesting projects, greater responsibilities, and accelerated career advancement. Moreover, your ability to listen fully in meetings and conversations will make you more valuable as a team member and leader, because you will understand situations more clearly and respond more thoughtfully than those whose attention is scattered. The transformation that occurs when you apply these principles consistently goes far beyond simply getting more done or being less distracted. Yoshitsune understood that focus is fundamentally about becoming the master of your own mind, rather than being at the mercy of every thought, emotion, and external stimulus that arises. When you develop this mastery, you gain access to states of consciousness and levels of performance that are impossible when your attention is fragmented. You begin to experience what Yoshitsune called the state of effortless concentration, where focus becomes not a struggle to maintain attention, but a natural expression of your aligned intention and energy. In this state, work feels more like play, because you are fully engaged with what you are doing, rather than fighting against distractions and internal resistance. Time seems to move differently, because you are completely absorbed in meaningful activity, rather than watching the clock and wishing you were somewhere else. Problems that seemed overwhelming when your attention was scattered become manageable, because you can bring your complete mental resources to bear on them without being weakened by fragmentation. Most importantly, you begin to experience a sense of deep satisfaction and accomplishment, because you are actually finishing important projects and achieving goals that matter to you, rather than staying busy with trivial activities while your most important aspirations remain unrealized. But here is what I want you to understand most clearly. These results are not reserved for a special class of naturally gifted people, and they do not require you to retreat from modern life or adopt an ascetic lifestyle. Yoshitsune developed these principles for warriors who were deeply engaged in the complexities and challenges of their world. And the techniques work precisely because they help you engage more skillfully with whatever circumstances you face, rather than avoiding them. You can apply these teachings while maintaining your current responsibilities, relationships, and lifestyle. The difference is that you will approach everything with greater clarity, presence, and effectiveness. The key is to start with one principle and practice it consistently until it becomes natural, rather than trying to implement all 6 elements simultaneously and overwhelming yourself. I recommend beginning with the anchoring technique, where you choose one primary focus for each day and practice returning your attention to this anchor whenever you notice your mind has wandered. Practice this for 1 week, paying attention to how it feels different from your usual scattered approach, and notice any changes in your productivity, energy, and satisfaction. Once anchoring becomes more natural, add the rhythmic engagement principle, working in focused bursts followed by strategic rest periods. Gradually incorporate the other elements as each previous one becomes integrated into your daily routine. Remember that Yoshitsune spent years developing these abilities, and while you can see improvements quickly, mastering focus is a lifelong journey rather than a quick fix. The goal is not to achieve perfect concentration immediately, but to develop progressively greater skill in directing your attention intentionally, rather than allowing it to be controlled by external circumstances and internal impulses. Each time you notice your mind has wandered and gently guide it back to your chosen focus, you are strengthening your mental discipline, just as each repetition in physical exercise strengthens your muscles. As we conclude, I want to offer you a challenge that will determine whether these teachings transform your life or remain interesting ideas that you forget within a few days. For the next 7 days, I want you to apply just the first principle, anchoring your awareness, with complete commitment and attention to the results. Each morning, choose one task that truly matters to your goals and well-being, and treat protecting your focus on this task as your primary mission for the day. Notice what interferes with this focus, how it feels different when you guide your attention intentionally, and what becomes possible when you bring your complete mental resources to bear on something important. At the end of 7 days, come back to this video and share in the comments what you discovered about your own focus capacity and how applying this one principle affected your productivity, energy, and satisfaction. Use this exact phrase to help others find your experience. Write 7-day focus challenge complete, and then describe the most significant change you noticed. Your commitment to this challenge and willingness to share your results will inspire others in our community to take these teachings seriously, and it will also reinforce your own transformation by making it public and real. If this video has opened your eyes to the profound difference between scattered attention and focused awareness, if you can see how applying Yoshitsune's timeless principles could transform every area of your life, then I want to invite you to join our community of people who are serious about developing mental discipline and achieving their most important goals. Subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss new teachings that will deepen your understanding and expand your capabilities. More importantly, commit to applying what you have learned rather than just consuming more information, because knowledge without application is merely entertainment, while knowledge with committed practice becomes transformation. The scattered, distracted person you were when this video began no longer needs to be the person you are tomorrow. You now possess the same fundamental principles that allowed one of history's greatest warriors to maintain perfect focus, even in chaos. And these principles are just as powerful today as they were 800 years ago. The only question is whether you will apply them with the dedication they deserve, or whether you will allow them to become another interesting idea that you file away and forget. Yoshitsune would tell you that this moment of choice is itself a test of your focus and commitment, and how you respond will determine whether his teachings become a source of transformation or simply another distraction in your already scattered life. Choose focus over chaos, choose intention over impulse, choose mastery over mediocrity, and discover what becomes possible when you finally take control of your own attention and direct it toward what matters most.